Welcome to the Warren Andrew Pinder podcast with your host, Warren Andrew Pinder, author and speaker.
Welcome to the Warren Andrew Pinder podcast show. This week's episode, The Power of Mastering the Basics. Whether you're learning to swim, play some sport, learning to make an investment, build your home, whether you are wanting to learn a trade, plumbing, electrical, carpentry, a good foundation is crucial to accomplishing the achievement of learning that specific goal that you set forward to do, the task. While getting lost in the details can seem easy, if we stick to the basics, we'll achieve. We watch oftentimes real experts in their particular craft or expertise and become discouraged because you say to yourself that, I can do that. But when you try, you see how difficult it may be. But it's for the years and years of practice and experience that expert would have gone through that makes the difference. See, the real difference between a pro and a novice is simply that the expert is much better and more effective at the basic tasks that are fundamental to that skill. He's done it so many times. He has perfected the basics of it. Real success will be sure to follow if we learn the basics of what it is we want to become proficient and an expert in. To master something, you rarely exceed your own objectives. So expect a lot from yourself. If you want to master it, you have to in your mind expect that you can. You have to see yourself making that swing to hit that golf ball. Athletes put in thousands of hours, perfecting their swing. They even when they're not trying to swing, they see the ball. As small as the ball may be, it becomes large to them. So when they swing at it, the target zone becomes larger because they've done it so many times. So when the ball comes to them at whatever speed it is, their eyes are trained. Their hand-eye coordination becomes exactly on point to take a swing at that ball. So in their mind, they know that someday they're going to be on the world stage, being able to perform and hit, a pitch from, a great pitcher. By adopting this approach and you learning to master the basics of a swing, for example, you remove any self-imposed psychological ceiling, that may stop you from ultimately getting to the level of achievement of being able to hit a ball at 100 miles an hour, or being able to swim. The thing about it is like growing up in the Bahamas is kind of funny when you talk to persons, they go out to the water, and how many persons love the water here in the Bahamas. The waters are beautiful. And oftentimes you go out on a boat and you hear persons say, "Oh, help me, get me off the boat because I can't swim." But that's something that in your mind you can formulate if you learn to just master that basics. If you learn to just propel your body and learn to kick your feet. A lot of times, in learning to swim, you're asked to, can you float or turn over, and you're taught to float so that the buoyancy of your body, it sits on top of the water. And then you turn over and, if you don't master the basics of that stroke, you'll find yourself going down because you're fighting the water, and you haven't practiced, you haven't learned the basic stroke. You haven't learned to kick your feet to propel your body. My daughter was a competitive swimmer, and it's just a joy to see when they hit the water, and man, they would just go through, and on point, just swimming. It's a hard sport. But what I'm talking about in mastering the basics and using an analogy of swimming, it can save your life. So when you sit down and you just take your time and you see yourself on top of the water with stroke by stroke, learning the breathing technique, learning how to kick and not fight, that your feet under the water like a frog, and literally the top, your upper body is fighting, the way in which you should go, so you get tired. But if you simply take the approach of mastering the basics of learning to swim, the simple principle of really just maybe a breaststroke, that you can feel your body just gliding through the water. So this is very, very important in anything that we set forth in our lives to do. Another approach is to imagine that you're eventually going to have to teach the skill to someone else. An important skill as learning to swim. You need to know what you're doing so thoroughly that you can explain it to anyone. So once you've learned the basics, this is what you will impart. And the more you do it, the more you become proficient, the more you become an expert. Think about the long term. Many people, want to rush through the basics to get to more interesting information on how they can advance. For instance, on a job, you would go through and someone give you a manual and say, just learn this, and now you're up and running, and you feel that, oh, I've learned it. Okay, yes, you're getting it done. But have you really taken time to perfect the basics of what you've learned? Mastering the basics, you can have huge success. And to excel at the advanced work, you must first know where to start. See, it's important to know that what comes before in order to get exactly what you want or what your task is completed. It's like a puzzle. There's A, there's B, there's C, D, E, F. Could all be scrambled. We know alphabetically A, B, C, D, E comes in order. But if it's scrambled and you're trying to put A, D, E, and it's supposed to be alphabetically in order, it's not going to work. So the analogy is to simply master that of which you're learning. And once you've taken this approach to master the basics, it becomes easier, enjoyable, and you want to learn more. If you adapt to it and you really, really love it, you want to become an expert in it because you have grasped hold of the basics. That's like math, For instance, me as, construction manager, when I sit down and, when I was being taught, math, geometry, it was in high school, to me, it was challenging. I didn't like it. But it wasn't until I was able to apply it, to pitching a roof, the angles of a roof. And I had to simply look and study how, the Pythagoras theorem worked in squaring up a building. And I realized that this was helping me in my profession, that I simply zoomed on into the basics of geometry to be able to help me to become an expert in angles of squaring up a building, in calculating the pitch of a roof. And this is how life is. You have to see yourself wanting to become an expert, but be prepared to sacrifice and learn the basics of the skill that is required for you to become an expert. If you don't understand how to play chess, you're never going to have the foundation to support understanding the final nuances of the game. If you don't master algebra, how will you ever be able to master calculus? So this is where I'm saying that these things apply to life. The coach may not be the greatest golfer, but he knows how to identify and teach you how to swing because he's mastered the basic of that swing. How many times he's done it, swing after swing. It's like you want to get on a motorbike and they tell you that you want to learn to wheelie your bike. It is cool. And you know how to throttle up. But you also have to know how to use your brake to balance it. But if you just get on that, you're going to be fearful. You're going to be afraid that you're going to tip that bike over. But when you master the basics of, yes, throttling up, and mastering the basics of how knowing when to tip that you don't go over, you'll be like, wanting to touch the road so much in the bike, and you feel like you're in the zone and you're just wheeling and you feel comfortable. But in your life, you must treat what it is that you want the same way. You have to sit and listen. The internet is there. There's so many things that you can grasp and teach yourself by watching others who have mastered a skill that you're desirous of learning. So you don't ever feel that mindset that I know it all. If you don't be ashamed that you may not know what someone else knows and feel as if you're shy about doing something because you don't know how to. In writing my book, I honestly didn't know where to start. I knew I wanted to tell my story. I knew that I had a story to tell. I knew that I wanted to motivate persons. I wanted to be able to share my experiences with other people. So I began to write. I began to just simply put down my thoughts on paper. And then gradually, I found myself just connecting the sentences and the paragraphs. And then the chapters came. And then I went and I looked into other publications and saw where this was needed, a forward was needed. I needed to develop that. And so you reached out to persons to do it. And quite frankly, the team that I had behind me were in the process where they were teaching. I felt as if we were learning together to put together publishing my book.
Thank you for joining today's podcast. We'll be right back.
Achieve Men, written by Warren Andrew Pinder. In this book, you will learn the 7 steps to achieving your dreams and goals. Given the vision to share how the acronym of the word achieve can be used systematically in your day-to-day life. Each of us is given a unique gift from God. Get your copy today. Available in print, ebook, and audiobook from Amazon.
We now return to today's podcast.
And after we literally had put it out, and then you want to get the message out, and you're still trying to get the message out. A lot of persons don't know, but I felt as if when you learn the basics and through my manager and persons who were helping me, you may not, I'll tell you, but we republished the book Achieve Men. And we were able to put it into a better format so that persons can grasp the concept in the book of the 7 steps of achievement. So that example is where I'm showing you that in perfecting the basics, we get a better product. Today, the product of my book, Achievement, to me, I'm proud of because we took the time to make the mistakes in trying to learn and master the basics. This is something that is simple to develop. You see, when a child learns to walk, he gets up and he tries to get balance first. In balancing, his courage then comes. He then makes a baby step, make 2 steps, fall. You cheer him on, but he gets up. His confidence is building, and then he runs to you. And then you may not know, but he does that so many times until you see him off balance. He's coming. He's like can't sit down because he's learning. He's mastering the basics of just simply learning to walk. And this is where we need to do in our lives. I had a conversation with a friend recently, and he was telling me how he enjoyed reading the book. and how he said at this point right now, where he's at in his life, he just loves to read. He loves to read hard copies. He doesn't want to e-copy. He doesn't want to listen to an audiobook because he learned to read well at a late age. And now that he's mastered that, he can go through a book tirelessly, page after page, because he's an expert in it. He's trained himself to become that expert and learn to read that book. So he now desires that. He has a yearning to want to read. Like he says, his mind is just expanded because now, he took his time and how he developed that at that age, that late age of learning to read. So our mindset should be that when we approach a task, a project, we must simply understand that it's like an open book that we want to learn everything step by step, systematically, step by step, learning the basics, doing it over and over until we master it. The transition will then come. Persons will then come to you and ask you, can you help? Can you help them or can you teach them what it is that you have learned so well, that you have mastered? Don't get fancy. Just simply do exactly what you're comfortable doing to achieve what it is that you have set forth to do by growing the basic skills that you've learned. Ask yourself if the problem is really the result of a shortcoming in one or more basic skills that you don't know. You will find that if you practice, if you repeat a task over and over, you will find that there is no shortcoming. Repetitively, you can master whatever it is you set out to do. So don't ever feel that you can't compete in the big leagues or with the big boys, or you can't achieve a dream job, a good paying job, or you can't learn to fix a car, or you can't learn to save, or you're not unable to swim. But if you look at it by simply taking action to learn the basics of it, you'll begin to swim gradually. And with practice, you'll begin to have a skill that could save your life. It'll take time to become an expert, but I guarantee you, if you swing at a ball over and over and over, you'll learn to hit that ball. You look at Jazz Chisholm, he's from the Bahamas and he's right now and playing for the Miami Marlins. And like he said, the hours that he put in, he knows that he can hit the ball. He perfected the technique. He mastered the basics. And there are many athletes around the world that have taken shot after shot. Steph Curry didn't become an expert at shooting a three-pointer without putting in the time and mastering the basic skill of shooting that three-pointer. Just like you have persons that would go in a boat in rough seas, but because they prepared themselves through when the seas were calm, learning to handle that boat, learning to navigate, learning the basic skills of getting home, the challenge that they may be faced, they face it as an expert because they had to go out and do it over and over. You're not going to become an expert if you just stay in the harbor, riding flat calms, the flat seas. But you have to, just go out into the rough a bit, get spanking those waves, knowing that I can overcome this, that I'm going to get from point A to point B, regardless of how rough these seas are, because I put in my time to learn the basics and I mastered how to operate this vessel. And I'm gonna rely on my skills to get me home safe. And this is a concept, this is something in life that knowing the power of mastering the basics. Time devoted to basics is the key to long-lasting progress and success. That's the secret. You have to devote your time and you have to really put in the work. You have to know that regardless of how mundane it may seem that you're repetitively doing the same thing, but understand that the more you do it, the better you become. The more you do it, over time, you'll become an expert. So take action to do whatever it is that you want to achieve, to know that whatever it is that you want to achieve. It'll start with you learning the basic skills and becoming a master at it. You've been listening to the Warren Andrew Pinder podcast show. To achieve, you must take action.
Thank you for listening to the Warren Andrew Pinder podcast. We hope you were encouraged and moved to take action. For more information about Warren Andrew Pinder and his book, Achieve Men, visit www.warrenandrewpinder.com.